And this is the very first digital camera.
The computer, the telephone, and the copying machine.
From B7 to B5 on move.
Some gadgets from the 1980s were more than just tools. They were part of our daily lives, fun, and memories. Today, many are gone, but not forgotten. Join us at 25 Forgotten 1980s Electronics You'll Wish You Still Owned. This was one of the first camcorders that let you record straight onto the tape inside the camera. That was a big deal in 1983. Before this, you had to carry a separate recorder box. It looked like a purse. The Beta movie killed that idea. It had better picture quality than VHS and could record up to 3 hours.
There's no way for it to decompress the signal it records. A normal Beta machine, where the heads travel a bit slower relative to the tape and there is no gap between them.
But it missed one big thing. There was no screen to see what you filmed. You had to plug it into a TV to watch. It was also heavy and cost nearly $1,600. That was too much for many people. Sony ended the Beta movie just 3 years later. But for many, it still brings back strong memories of home videos and family moments. If you grew up in the early 80s, you may remember these giant movie discs your parents kept in the cabinet. They looked like records, but played full movies. Slipping the big plastic case into the player and hearing that soft click was part of movie night magic. The picture looked sharp back then. There was no rewinding, just press play.
Color quality, picture stability, and of course, audio performance are all monitored here.
But halfway through, someone always had to get up and flip the disc. If your hands were dusty or you dropped it, that was it. The disc was done. They were bulky and tricky, but we didn't care. Back then, it felt like the future. And seeing one now, it brings back the smell of popcorn and the glow of the family TV on a Friday night. In the 1980s, drawing on a screen felt like something from a sci-fi movie. This little tablet felt like magic if you had an Atari 8-bit computer. You'd sit there for hours, dragging that chunky pen across the smooth surface, trying to draw something cool. It wasn't easy. The lines were blocky and straightforward, but we didn't mind. Making shapes or little houses felt high-tech. You couldn't share or print much, but it didn't matter.
Some of his stuff and had a whole whack of Atari. Saw this and I thought, well, it's really cool that, this touch tablet, how Atari was ahead.
You just kept going, erasing, and starting over. The CX-77 didn't last long, but made us feel like artists. For kids in the 80s, this was the closest we got to being digital creators. Today, seeing one sparks memories of floppy disks, pixel drawings, and that satisfying tap of plastic on plastic. In the 80s, if your parents brought home an IBM PCJR, it felt like you owned a real computer. You'd sit on the floor, poking away at the strange keyboard, trying to load games or type out your name in BASIC. It looked serious, like something from Dad's office, but the magic faded fast. It cost a lot, and cheaper computers from Commodore or Atari did more.
Personal finance and home management. There are 15 programs for communications and another 15 for the stock market. Over 200 for general business.
The keyboard felt weird. Even the tech magazines didn't like it, but kids didn't care. It still beeped, clicked, and sometimes ran games. Seeing one now reminds you of your first taste of computing. It was a time when booting up meant loading from a floppy and every screen felt like a peek into the future. Think computers were cool. Wait till you remember the calculator that made music. VL Tone looked like a calculator, but it was way more. This tiny white keyboard had beats, melodies, and even a secret synth mode buried behind number codes. You could write songs, play melodies, and feel like a one-person band, all from something that fits your school bag. Casio promised millions of sound combos, but most sounded the same.
And while this is an annoying way to have to input the synthesizer data, it's pretty amazing that a keyboard from 1980 would even have such a feature.
The synth part was tricky. You entered weird number codes just to change a sound, and small changes could mess up the whole tone or cut the sound short. The way the sound faded in and out was unpredictable. Sometimes it didn't fade, and other times it faded too fast. It felt like it was doing its own thing. For all its charm, the VL Tone felt more like a toy than a serious instrument. Ultimately, it vanished quietly, but not before leaving a weird, excellent mark on 80s music memories. This thing was massive. If your family had one, it probably sat on a desk too heavy to move. It was Apple's first try at making a laptop, but calling it portable was a stretch. At 16 pounds, it felt more like luggage. Still, it had a charm. That small screen lit up with early Mac icons.
I've come back to the battery with a multimeter, and I checked the voltage of the battery, and it seems to be hovering just over 3 volts.
You could hear the keys click like typewriters, and even though it cost more than a used car, it made you feel like you were holding something special. It did not last long. People wanted lighter, cheaper options. But for kids who saw it back then, it looked like a machine from the future. Now it is a reminder of Apple's early steps and bold ideas. If you were lucky enough to get a Coleco Atom, you probably remember the buzz when it turned on and maybe the panic when it wiped your data. The system looked cool and promised a lot. It even came with a typewriter-style keyboard. It could do games, writing, and printing.
As the units that were shown on the show floor were being shown behind tinted glass that had handmade units with non-working drives.
But it also erased tapes if you turned it on wrong. That bug frustrated many families. Still, many of us typed our first stories or tried our first game code on it. The Atom did not last, but it holds a place in tech history. Seeing one now brings back a time when home computers were still new and every beep and screen felt full of promise. This camera looked like a toy but felt like magic. It lets kids become directors. You could record grainy black and white videos right onto cassette tapes. Many kids used it to film silly skits or family moments. It only gave you 11 minutes per tape, but those minutes felt important. The camera had no fancy parts, just a plastic body and a small viewfinder. The image was rough but full of feeling.
The camera was used in the movie Love and Other Drugs. Although when Anne Hathaway is pointing it at Jake Gyllenhaal, the camera is noticeably quiet.
It cost too much for many parents, so it vanished quickly from stores. Today, artists and filmmakers love its look. Some movies even use it. The PXL 2000 may have started as a toy, but it sparked creativity for many. We filmed like directors, but it's time to code like kids. The Timex Sinclair 1000 is coming up. This tiny black computer was many kids' first taste of coding. It looked simple, but felt powerful. You hooked it to your living room TV and typed commands using a soft, flat keyboard. It came with just 2 KB of memory, yet it opened a new world. You could write small games, display scrolling messages, or explore basic programming ideas.
3.5mm jack as the ear and mic socket. So as you can imagine, I bet you a lot of these were fried by plugging the power into the wrong.
Loading software from cassette tapes was slow but exciting. Many kids sat for hours waiting for their creations to work. It cost under $100, making it the first affordable home computer for many families. Even though it had no sound or color, it sparked curiosity. It felt like a little box full of possibilities and imagination. If you had a Walkman, you had freedom. It played your favorite songs on the go using cassette tapes. You would press play, close your eyes, and disappear into your music. Whether it was Michael Jackson or Madonna, it all sounded better with headphones on. The design was small and stylish. The orange foam on the headphones became a familiar sight everywhere.
Now, what's so great about this thing? Well, it has a ton of features that you're just not going to find on any other Walkman.
You clipped it to your belt or tucked it in your bag. Swapping tapes with friends was part of the fun. It made music personal. For the first time, you didn't have to share a radio or wait for your song to play. The Walkman gave you control. Seeing it now brings a rush of music-filled memories. The Amiga was a dream machine. It had bright graphics, real stereo sound, and smooth animations. For kids who used it, everything felt futuristic. It could play advanced games, draw detailed pictures, and even make music. People made cartoons, edited videos, and ran complex programs from one machine. The mouse and windows made it easy to use.
The first thing that we need to do to get this GoTech working with the Amiga is to change the stock firmware to a compatible one, which is flash floppy.
Some even connected it to their TV for a bigger screen. Its games looked better and ran smoother than anything else at the time. Titles like Lemmings or Shadow of the Beast became part of childhood. Every sound effect and pixel stood out. The Amiga was more than a computer. It was a place where imagination and technology met every day. This little silver player changed everything. You would slide in a shiny CD, press play, and hear crystal clear music in your ears. There was no tape hiss, no fast forwarding. It just had a smooth sound and clean skips between songs. The Discman allowed people to carry full albums with them for the first time. It fits in your backpack or jacket pocket.
Changed, however, with the DJ01, having developed electronic shock protection and making CD players usable while walking.
You'd walk around with headphones on, lost in your world. You picked your favorite CD, flipped open the lid, and pressed down the clunky buttons. Some models skipped if you moved too much, but you learned to walk smoothly. Owning a Discman made you feel modern and cool. Looking at one now brings back memories of mixtape CDs, music stores, and rewinding tracks just to hear your favorite part again. Music was great, but data ruled too. Let's talk about the 3.5-inch floppy disk next. These plastic squares were once everywhere. School papers, games, and programs all lived on them. You carried them in your backpack, drawer, or a floppy disk case with a sliding latch. Each one had a little label where you wrote what was inside.
Any bending of the disk right around the read area. This is the index hole, which was monitored by a sensor so that the drive would know exactly where the disk was rotation.
Math homework, a saved game, or some mystery file you forgot about. You would insert one into the drive, hear that soft whirring, and wait. It took patience. These disks didn't hold much, barely over a megabyte, but it felt like enough. They clicked softly when you inserted them, a sound that sticks in memory. Seeing one today brings back computer labs, clunky old monitors, and trying to copy a file with just enough space left. It was slow and straightforward, but you felt like a computer genius every time it worked. Before high-speed internet, this box of magic ruled the house. You would sit before your computer, click Connect, and wait for that screeching dial-up sound. It was a song of its own. Long beeps, static, then a pause. When it clicked in, you were online. Everything moved slowly.
And wait for it to ring. It's ringing.
Pictures took forever to load. You had to warn your family not to pick up the phone. A single call could knock you offline. But when it worked, it felt like magic. You could check email, visit early websites, or enter chat rooms that felt like secret clubs. Looking back, it was clunky, noisy, and slow. But that beep meant you were connected to something big. It was your first step into the online world and felt limitless. This tiny device clipped to your belt or tucked into your pocket felt like a lifeline. It would beep or buzz, and you'd glance at the screen to see a number. You knew someone needed you. Maybe your parent, your friend, or your boss. Then came the mission, finding a phone to call them back. It felt important.
Mom, we got a better idea. We'll page you.
Carrying a pager made you feel grown up. Doctors, workers, and even teenagers had one. Some codes, like 911, told you it was urgent. You'd get a buzz and sprint for the nearest payphone or home line. Pagers weren't fancy, but they worked. They connected people. They mattered. Seeing one today brings back that feeling of being needed and plugged into a world where every beep meant something important. This noisy machine once ruled the office. You fed in a page, typed in the number, and waited. Then came the hum and buzz as the paper slid through, sending your message over phone lines. Watching it print out on the other side felt like magic. In the 1980s, faxes were the fastest way to send contracts, letters, or any urgent document. They had quirks, like paper jams, smudged ink, and busy signals, but people trusted them. The sound of the fax starting up meant business was happening. Every office had one. People would stand around it with coffee, waiting for the confirmation page to print.
Here to talk to you today about fax machines. On behalf of Expert Village.
Now they sit in back rooms unused. But hearing one again brings back memories of real paper trails and busy desks filled with purpose. We sent pages through wires. But now, let's return to the pocket-sized brain. The Sharp Pocket Computer, PC 1500, is next. This was a calculator that dreamed of being a computer. The Sharp PC 1500 looked simple, but packed a brain inside. You could write code in BASIC right from its keyboard. It was slim, light, and fit in your hand. Some used it to learn programming, while others used it for math and data. It had only a few kilobytes of memory, but back then that was impressive. You could carry your mini-lab or work tool in your coat pocket.
1500 pocket computer, this little guy over here.
The buttons made a soft click, and the screen showed your little programs letter by letter. It felt like science fiction. Holding one now reminds people of classroom desks, pocket protectors, and the excitement of typing real code while sitting on the bus or couch. This watch made you feel like a secret agent. It told time, sure, but it did a lot more. It stored phone numbers, had a calendar, and even offered alarms and a calculator. For many, it was the first digital organizer they ever owned. You tapped tiny buttons with your fingernail, trying not to press two simultaneously. It had a glowing light and a beep that made it feel futuristic.
What's the world's most revolutionary watch? The Casio Melody Alarm, 12 Melody.
At the time, having your schedule on your wrist was mind-blowing. Friends gathered around to see it in action. It was a gadget and a statement. It showed you were ahead of the curve. Today, seeing one brings back school days' hallway chats and that feeling of being high-tech without needing anything in your pocket. Before phone cameras, people had the fling. It was bright yellow, cheap, and ready to go. You snapped photos without worry, then dropped the camera off at the store. They would develop the pictures and give you prints a few days later. You took it to parties, parks, and vacations.
They're flashable, they're splashable, they're lashable, they're stashable, they're
You did not worry about lenses or settings. You just aimed, clicked, and laughed. The pictures were not perfect, but they caught the moment. The fling used a 110mm film at first, then moved to 35mm. It later became the fun saver. Everyone had one at some point. Holding one today brings back trips to the photo lab, curled prints, and the quiet excitement of opening the envelope to see what you captured. This was the first real flip phone. Long before smartphones, the MicroTac was the phone that turned heads. You flipped it open with a snap and started talking. It was long and chunky, but at the time it felt sleek.
The Motorola MicroTac, and this device is from Motorola, obviously, and
the mouthpiece folded down and tucked under the keypad. That clever design made it feel smaller in your pocket or purse. It had a red display and a simple menu. No texting, no apps, just pure voice calls. People who had one looked important, a sign of status. Seeing one now takes you to business suits, shoulder pads, and the excitement of hearing your first phone ring without wires. Phones were smart, but games were more innovative. Get ready for the battle of minds with the Chess Challenger. You sat cross-legged on the carpet, staring at that blinking board, ready for battle. The Chess Challenger was not just a toy, it was your silent opponent. Unlike board games that needed a friend, this machine always had time to play. You would enter your move, and it would light up its reply, patiently waiting for your counter. The voice was silent, but the tension was real. You made its moves by hand, carefully thinking through each step.
C3, enter. From H4 to F2, queen.
It never got tired or bored, and never made it easy. Beating it felt like winning a trophy, even if no one else saw it. It was not fast or flashy, but it taught you to think ahead and stay calm. That blinking light meant you were in the game. This was not just a stereo, it was a statement. The Onkyo ZAC 55 was for the kid who wanted bass power and style in one machine. Most boomboxes were heavy enough to feel like lifting weights. The ZAC E55 gave you the boom without breaking your back. Its sleek design stood out, and it was packed with features. You could easily carry it, crank the volume, and make the sidewalk your stage. Music pulsed from its speakers, and heads turned as you walked by. If you were lucky, there were extra speakers, a bass booster, and a leather carrying case. Songs sounded louder, and life felt bigger. Seeing one today brings back street corners, mixtapes, and afternoons spent rewinding your favorite part of the track just one more time. Before Sonic sped into the spotlight, this was where the action started. The Sega Master System stood tall next to the Nintendo, giving gamers a fresh world to explore. Its bold red and black design made it look sharp and futuristic. Games like Alex Kidd and Outrun kept kids glued to their screens.
Your nunchucks. Nice shot. If you live through this round, you get ninja magic.
The graphics were bright, the music catchy, and the challenge real. You would blow other cartridges, tap the reset button, and hope today was the day you finally beat that one level. It had its style and fans. While it never beat Nintendo in sales, it gave players memories they never forgot. Holding the controller today brings back the thrill of a new game box and Saturday mornings with no homework. Some people swore by it. The picture was sharper, the sound was cleaner, and the tapes felt like quality. Super Betamax was Sony's proud answer to VHS. If you had one at home, you believed you had the better machine. Movie nights meant sliding in a Betamax cassette and adjusting the tracking. Families gathered around the TV bowl of popcorn, ready and remote in hand. It was smooth and stylish, even if it never became the standard.
The picture. And Sony Betamax records a sharper picture than VHS. That's not just our opinion. In tests throughout the...
Eventually, VHS won the format war. Stores stopped renting Betamax tapes, but those who owned one never forgot its brilliance. Seeing a Super Betamax today brings back the buzz of rewinding tapes and those sticker labels full of handwritten movie titles. You have seen how we watched movies, now see how we captured moments. The next one is Canon RC701. This camera felt like the future in your hands. The Canon RC701 did not use film. It saved photos onto a special floppy disk, unheard of for photographers in 1986.
And this is the very first digital camera that was ever made and sold to the public. It's the Canon RC701.
It could quickly shoot and store 50 images and connect to Canon's 35mm DSLR line lenses. The LCD showed all your camera settings. You had control, precision, and a new way to capture the world. It was not cheap, but it was exciting. Professional photographers and news teams used it to get shots quickly. Images appeared on screens without needing darkrooms. Today, it feels big and clunky, but it was a step into the digital world back then. Seeing it now brings back studio lights, tech fare, and the first idea that photos could live on discs.